Okay, we're going to take a look at the homework from last night, chapter 2:7. There's two ways you could do it. You could do it with more variables or fewer variables. I'm going to show you both. This should be quick. The first thing that it says is write a program in JGrasp whose class name is StateTravel, and then initialize a named constant that holds the number of states in America, and then use a dialog box. So since we're using Dialog Box, you need to have this import statement. And it says initialize a named constant that holds the number of states in America. And so we do that right here. We have to include the final with a small f. It's an int because it's going to have the number of states. The states has all caps. Num US states has all caps. And there's underscores in between each word. And then it's assigned on the same line as declared, which, if you know it, that's the best way to go. The next thing it says, use a dialog box to get the number of states the user has traveled so far. Now, in order to do that, you've got to have some variables first. So if you're going to ask the user for input with a JOption pane, you got to have a string that accepts that input. And so here is the states traveled string. So you're going to ask them, how many states did you travel so far? When they enter that number, it's going to be a string, so you have to have a string to hold it. But then you're going to also need to convert that string to an int, so you have another memory location ready for the conversion of that string. And so here comes the dialog box. Not yet. We also are going to need to calculate how many states they have left, so we're going to have a variable holder for that, a memory location that's going to be ready to take that calculation. And so the next thing is the dialog box. This is, of course, the variable we're going to store the response in, and we chose this string to be the one that stores the response, which makes sense because JOption input dialog boxes return strings. And so here's the input dialog box and the question. And so the user types in their number, and then it's stored in this states traveled string. And so now this states traveled string right here has a value that's a string, even if it's a number, and it needs to be converted to an int. So we apply the parse int method with the integer wrapper class. And what it does is after it takes that, it's going to store it in the states traveled int. Notice we use the same word here, states traveled, as we do here. The only difference is that one's a string and one is not. So that's a good practice to do. It keeps things easy. The next thing that the directions say is use another variable to calculate how many states the user has left to visit. Well, if you think about programs, if you think about doing them yourself by hand, how would you do those? And so you would do the same thing as far as coding goes. And we know that if the person traveled 30 states so far, that if you went 50 minus 30, you'd get 20, and that's how many states they have left. And so here it is. Number of states left is going to do the calculation. It's going to call the named constant, which we know is 50 because we declared it already. And then this is whatever states traveled is not the string, but the int version, because the string version can't be used in a calculation. And so this will then subtract whatever the user typed from the non-US states, which is 50. And then it says to use a dialog box. Just one dialog box is all it says, to tell the user in a sentence how many states they have left to visit. So here it is. You have number of states left, which is gotten from this calculation over here, left to visit, and that will print it. So if we do a quick compile and enter states, I'll just say 20, and then 50 minus 30 should be 20 is 30, and so it says it right. Now if you happen to do it the other way, over here you've got the same idea. Everything's the same except for here you don't need a StateTravel string and a StateTravel int. You're going to do it all at one time, and everything else is the same. So we're minus a variable, and then here, instead of putting the result of the return of what the user types into a string variable, we're going to put it into an int variable. Why? Because whatever they type here in that dialog box is going to be converted here, all on the same line. So if they type a 20, it's going to be a 20 string, but then it's going to get converted before it ever gets to states traveled, and then it will be an int. And then everything else is the same, and that's pretty much it. So I hope this helps.